This is Barry here, and you are very, very welcome to today's podcast episode. Now, today's podcast episode, I want to talk about building a brand story. Now, straight away, you're probably reaching for the pause button. You're probably thinking, well, this has got nothing to do with me because I'm a one-man band working at home. So why the hell would I want a brand story? Isn't that something that the big, businesses and corporations would have? But little old me working from home, why would I need a brand story? And that's a valid question. Why would you need one? Well, I think the reason you would need a brand story is that by having a brand story, it's going to allow you to look at what you do in a new light. It's also going to allow your customers, your followers, your viewers to look at what you do in a new light. And by having a brand story, it's going to separate you from everyone else. They're going to know, well, this is the reason why he's showing up today and recording a video. This is the reason why she's recording this podcast episode. This is the reason why they are writing ebooks and trying to build this business, because this is what they're looking to achieve. And by having a brand story on your side, it's going to make you look at your business differently, because you're not just showing up to record a video, you're not just showing up to write a blog post, there's something deeper inside you that is making you show up today. Now, while it's all good and well chasing after the money, you will find that over time your motivation is just going to dip and eventually probably come to a grinding halt. And the reason I know that is because there are thousands of people right now coming on the internet who are just chasing money, and I know for a fact that they'll not get that money because they'll not stay around long enough, because they don't have a strong enough reason of why they should keep continuing. But by having a brand story, it's going to help you build a why in you to keep you going until the money shows up at some point in the future. So how do you build a brand story? Well, you can probably watch a lot of videos on YouTube. You can probably buy a lot of books on Amazon. You can go to experts, which will probably give you everything in this video, probably in a lot more depth. But what I'm doing is I'm just going to giving you an aerial kind of point of view. And in this podcast episode, I am going to talk about me. So hopefully in this episode, you are going to build a stronger bond with me, because I'm going to tell you why I'm here. And what you can do is maybe use what I'm doing as an example of how you can actually create your own brand story. So the first thing you need to think about is why. Why are you doing what you're doing? What changes are you looking to make? What are your values? What is pissing you off right now that you want to make a difference? Now, in my own case, the reason why I show up here consistently is because I am pissed off with people reaching a certain age in their life and then giving up. We have a person maybe in their 40s or 50s who haven't followed their dreams and their goals, and then at this point to say, well, if I haven't done it by now, let's just forget about it. And basically some people just live this life where it's just a free wheel to the graveyard, and because they feel, well, if I hadn't done my dreams, my goals by this stage, it's game over. It's too late. And that, I'll tell you now, makes me angry. It also depresses me, because I know for a fact every time I go past a graveyard, I can see all the ideas that are in there, all the wonderful inventions, all the wonderful content, all the wonderful ideas, books, movies, everything else that those people took with them, because unfortunately they didn't work on their talents and share them with us, because at some point in their life they said, well, I can't do it, or I'm too old to do it, and so they took all those things with us. And we, the world, are missing out on that because those people took that with them. So that makes me angry, because I don't want more ideas going to the graveyard. Wonderful personalities, wonderful content that we could be watching that could motivate us, inspire us, is just being wasted. And I don't want the thought of anyone, on this kind of free wheel to the graveyard who isn't enjoying their life, who isn't trying to do as much as they can. So that is the reason why I show up here, is because I want to wake people up. I want you to realize that even though you are a certain age, it's not game over. That if you want to record videos, you can start recording videos at any age. If you want to write ebooks, you can write ebooks at any age. If you want to build an online business, you can do it at any age. And right now in your head, there is wonderful talent, abilities and knowledge in there that I don't want you to take to the grave with you. I want you to share it with us. So that's why I am here. That's my why. So hopefully you can see that, by me having this why, it fires me up. Maybe you've seen how my expression changed. Maybe you felt, a stronger bond to me because of me sharing that with you. And that's going to be the same with you as well too when you work on your brand story. By sharing it with your audience, they're going to feel more of a connection with you. So that's the first thing you should think about is why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Now again, the next thing you should have a look at after why is you need to build a story. What is your story? Why do you feel that way? What challenges have you overcome? What have you seen in life that's made you say, well, no more. This is what I'm here to do, and this is why I'm here to do it. Again, going back to my own life, I had one of these moments one night when I was working on night shift. I used to work in our local supermarket. I used to work 10 hours every night, and basically what I used to do every night was I used to stack shelves. Now, nothing wrong with that. It fed my kids. It put a roof over myself and my family. But there was one night I was just thinking to myself, and I just said, Barry, what kind of example am I setting to my kids? That when they're younger, we kind of tell them, oh, you can reach for the stars, you can achieve whatever you want, you can do this, you can do that, you can do the other. And then here was me working in this job, stacking shelves. And I remember thinking to myself, would I want my kids in this position, in this job, of thinking this is as good as it gets? Now, at the time, I was kind of playing around with the idea of writing fiction. I'd always kind of been working on online businesses, doing this and doing that. But I remember this opportunity came up early in the Amazon Kindle store where a lot of people were writing fiction books and kids' books and putting them on the Amazon store. And a lot of people were making money on it. Now, I looked at me and I said to myself, well, Barry, if you want to be an example to your kids, it's about time you did something and led by an example so that my kids could look to me hopefully sometime in the future and say, well, my dad did all those different things. And if he took on those challenges, well, then you know something? I'm going to give it a go too. So I knew if I was going to make a change in my kids' lives, I would need to be the example. So what I did at the time was I started writing fiction, started publishing Kindle books. And all of a sudden, I realized that I had a love for writing fiction. And I realized that, the books I was writing were not bad. Now, they weren't going to be on the New York Times best-selling list, but they weren't bad. And kids enjoyed those books. And I started getting some great reviews. And then I realized to myself at the time, Barry, you've always dreamed about doing a podcast. You've overcome your fear of writing fiction. You've released books. So let's have a look at recording a podcast episode. And from overcoming that, I started recording podcast episodes. I started recording digital products. And I kind of had this, it was almost like a domino knock-on effect, where if I did something, I said to myself, something, I've did that. So let's try something else. Let's try something else. Let's try something else. Now, at the time when I started on the journey, working back, stacking shelves, I didn't know what was ahead of me. I didn't think I could do any of those things. I didn't think I had the talent, ability, or the courage to even show up here and record videos. And yet, here I am. And that is why I am doing what I'm doing. That's my story. It was just that one night when I was just working in that job that I detested. And I just said to myself, no more. I can't allow my family just to get this level and think this is as good as it gets. I want them to push themselves a little bit further to see what else they can do. So, that's my story. So what about your story? Why do you do the thing that you do? Has there been a moment where you just got angry, where maybe you were, you opened your wallet and there was no cash, and then that was the changing point where you said to yourself, never again? So think about that. Now as well too, when it comes to your brand story, you need to think about who is in your audience, because you need to talk to your audience. And the better you know your audience, well then the better the story you can explain to them. So what I'd recommend is, even though maybe right now you're starting off, you don't have much thought about your audience, but you need to think about who you are creating content for. Who are you writing ebooks for? Whose life are you trying to change? And by having that idea of whose life you're trying to change, it's going to give you a better idea of what type of content you should be creating. It'll also give an idea of what you should mention in your brand story. Going back to my own story of me standing in that, that night shift, I can speak to parents. And I'm sure by me sharing my message, I know that there is a parent out there who's probably thinking about that, thinking of, what their kid's life is going to be like if they don't make a change. So what I can do is, if I know my audience and I'm saying to myself, well, Barry, we're speaking to people who've got kids. Well, then every time I am creating content or use my brand story, I am going to aim at those people. I'm going to aim at parents. I'm not going to be talking to single people. I'm not going to be talking to maybe elderly retired people, but I'm going to be talking to people who want to make a difference in the world, make a difference in their family's life. And by knowing the type of people that I'm speaking to, it's going to allow me to, create better content that's going to build me a stronger bond to that. Because I know if I'm recording content and I'm speaking to parents that have got kids, well then the videos that, a single person might watch, it won't be relevant to them. They'll have no connection to it. Whereas if maybe someone who's a parent is watching this video, they are probably going to put themselves in my shoes, and I'm going to have a stronger connection that video they watch is going to be more irrelevant to them. So what you need to do is you need to think about, who are you going after? Again, it's very easy to think, well, everybody is our viewer, everybody is our blog reader, everybody is our customer of our digital products. But it's not. There is a small niche of people that you should be going after. And the smaller the niche you can find, and the more you speak to those people, well then, when they watch your video, they're going to say, wow, it's like he knows me. It's like she's talking straight to me. It's like she had the same life as I had, because you are speaking to a small group of people. So think about that when you are coming up with your brand story. And maybe if you haven't got a brand story, that is one thing you should be working on right now at the beginning of your business, is trying to find out, well, who am I doing this for? So find out who your audience is. Now, what you need to do as well too is be honest in your brand story. Because it's easy to be, a fake version, because the internet is just littered with fake people. Instagram is filled with it. You've got people who are just puffing their chests, who are pretending that they're all driving around in Lamborghinis, living in mansions, and have beautiful, model wives or partners. But you and I know that's wrong. And you might think, if you're doing something like that, that you are, pulling the wool over our eyes. But we can spot a fake. We can sense a fake. And the more you kind of come across as a fake person, there's going to be a disconnect between you and your followers and your customers. So what you need to do is you need to flip it over. You need to be honest. Sometimes brutally honest about yourself. Sometimes, mentioning things maybe to the people that you probably haven't said to family and friends. And the more honest you are, the more you are going to come across in the video. Now, you know yourself, even going through social media. Has there ever been a video where you just were stopped in your tracks and it was such a raw video? Maybe somebody was crying. Maybe somebody was, all happy. But you could tell coming across through the video or the content that you were reading that that person was an absolute genuine person. They were just speaking to you just honestly and off the cuff. And you could have watched maybe 100 videos that day, but that video stood out to you because it was just raw. It was just honest. And it felt like there was a strong connection between you and that content. And that's what you need to think about when you're building your brand story, is just to be honest. Be authentic. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be beautiful. You don't need to know it all. But just be honest. Stop putting on these fake personas and, trying to make out that you're a millionaire or a billionaire and that you're just, and you're still living at home, maybe in your cellar. But don't be putting on those fake personalities, because we can sense it. And if you want to build a strong brand story, you need to be honest. And again, too, in this video, you can probably tell how honest I am because of what I'm saying. And if I was faking it, you probably would switch off. You'd probably go on and you wouldn't even listen to me. So when you're coming up with your brand story, be honest, be authentic, and be you. Now, what you need to do as well, too, is you need to show people that you understand. In your brand story, it's okay you having this great big brand story, But if I don't understand, well, why are you doing this for me? There's going to be a disconnect between the two of us. But again, going back to this video here, the reason, as I said, why I show up here is because I don't want you taking your talents and abilities to the grave with you. I don't want you thinking that this is as good as it gets. I don't want you to not be the best example to your kids, to your family, as you can be. And I'm sure by listening to me, you're starting to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. So you need to show your audience why you're doing it, but you need to show also that you understand where they are. Again, going back to my own story, I know what it's like to be, scared witless. I know what it's like to be afraid of, hitting the publish button on a blog post, of being terrified of recording a video, of being terrified of putting content on the internet and being worried, well, is everybody going to laugh at me? Is everybody going to give me negative criticism? Is this just going to blow up my face? Is it going to be a total embarrassment? I know what that's like because I've been there. And I want you to know by me actually bringing up these things in this podcast episode that I understand where you are. I know what it's like to be scared. I know what it's like to feel that there's nothing great in you. I know what it's like to feel of being, fed up, depressed with your life and thinking that, everybody else is far cleverer than you. I know what that's like. So again, if you know your audience, you can actually put yourself in their shoes so that when you are recording your content, not doing anything fake, being honest and being authentic, but you can actually put yourself mentally in their shoes so that when you are recording your content, you can talk attentively to that person by showing them that you understand. Another thing I'd say to you is to stick to your message everywhere. When you are coming up with a brand story, that brand story should be the same brand story that's on YouTube, on your blog, on your podcast, everywhere. If I was to maybe come upon you maybe on social media, and as I'm going through your content, I'm kind of getting this idea of a brand story of what you're like on Twitter. But then what if I go over to YouTube then and you're talking about something else? You're aiming at another audience. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I had a lot of connection with the stuff they're putting on Twitter, but this stuff on YouTube seems to be different. There's a disconnect between the two. You're going to lose an audience on both platforms because you're being different on both platforms. So whatever your brand story is, it should be the same brand story in a video. It should be the same brand story in a blog post. It should be the same brand story in a podcast episode. It should always be mentioned in your ebooks or your digital products, but it should come up everywhere. And by it coming up everywhere, you're going to show that that is your brand story. So don't be skipping over and back and changing it from different platform to different platform. You should be the same on all platforms. And what I'd say to you as well too is to highlight your USP. Now you're probably thinking, well, what the hell is USP? 1 minute he's gone on about brand stories, the next minute he's gone on about USPs. What the hell is a USP? Well, a USP is a unique selling position. And basically what that means is, how are you different than everyone else? How are you unique from everyone else? Again, there's so many people probably putting videos on TikTok, on YouTube, and I can be like everyone else. But if I lean into my USP of the reason why I'm doing this, well then when you come up against my content, you're going to say, well, Barry's recording these videos because he wants to make a bit difference in people's lives, because he wants people to wise up. He doesn't want people to take their talents and abilities to the grave with them, and he wants parents to be an example to their kids. And that's my USP. So by having a USP, it separates my content from everyone else. That is the reason why I'm showing up in this video. Now, there's probably going to be a lot of videos on the platform that you're on, or a lot of podcast episodes that you're listening to, but by me mentioning my story, it starts to separate me from everyone else. So work out what is your unique selling proposition. Now, if that does seem maybe a little bit confusing, what I'd recommend is go back to the why and the what. Why are you doing what you're doing? What change are you trying to make? Don't think of a slogan, some catchy slogan, as being a USP. It's not. Anybody can come up with a slogan. But by having a unique selling position, it makes you separate. It makes everything you do different than everyone else's. So try and highlight your USP. Again, sometimes you don't have to do it. Sometimes it can be just talking about why you're actually doing what you're doing, the changes you're trying to make in the world, the people that you're trying to help. That can, in the beginning, be the start of a USP. And it will probably be something that you can develop over time. If you find that maybe it's hard right now coming up with a USP, it probably will come to you eventually. You'll start to realize, well, this is why I'm here. This is what I'm trying to do. And this is why I'm different than everyone else. And as well, too, when it comes to your brand story, you don't have to do it all yourself. What you can do is you can actually use your followers and your customers and use them as an example of your brand story. Say, for example, maybe we had a weight loss product and I'm trying to come up with a brand story and I have my own little brand story going at the moment. But what I can do is I can use my customers as another example of my brand story, in that I can talk about my digital product that was probably an ebook on weight loss, and Sally in such and such a place read my ebook, and here is her testimonial of what my ebook did for her and how it allowed her to lose weight. So bringing your audience into your brand story makes it more kind of rounder. It doesn't seem that it's just you. There's a kind of a community going on here. So if you have any reviews, testimonials, mention them in your content so that you're actually showing the people who maybe who don't know you, haven't bought your content, or maybe haven't bought your products, but it'll show those people that there's a community actually building around you, that you're making a difference in people's lives. So use other people's testimonials as your brand story, and it will help you, probably sell more products by doing that. And again, too, when it comes to your brand story, it's going to change over time. The brand story I have right now of me trying to help people wake up from the nonsense that they're telling themselves that, at this stage in their life, if they haven't done it by now, it's a free wheel to the graveyard. That my brand story might change over time. I might find differently. I could find as I'm going on my life journey that there will be maybe another magic moment where this moment changed my life. And then I can probably talk about that in my brand story. So don't think that you're going to make a mistake with your brand story. It's not something that you need to get 100% right. If you get it 50% right, that's a lot better than none there at all. And as I said, by having a brand story, it will allow you to see your business in a different way. That this is the reason you show up to record your videos. This is the reason you're trying to sell these digital products. And again, too, on the other side of the camera or your content or your products, your customers are going to see you different. Because they're going to say, well, here's Barry showing up here because he was trying to make a difference in people's lives. So, although having a brand story probably seems like something that's beyond you, something not what your interest, I'm sure you can tell in this podcast episode that maybe it is something you should work about. You should think about doing. It's okay coming online to go after the money, but that gets tiring. You're going to run out of motivation, and people on the other side will probably see that you're just a money grabber and not really there to benefit them. And you'll probably find they'll go somewhere else. And by chasing the money, you're going to find, well, you're no different than anyone else. And if you don't stand out, you don't stand out. And your followers, your audience is going to be attracted to people who stand out. So give that some thought today. As I said, you can study a lot on this topic, and I've only given you kind of an aerial view. I've probably done the version of drawing on the wall in crayons to explain this to you. But hopefully in this podcast episode, you've got to know me better. You know why I'm doing this, and hopefully it'll allow you to come up with your own brand story. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. If you have any comments, anything at all, feel free to leave it below the video. And as always, have a lovely day. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.